Hello everybody, and welcome to what is our next really big saga here on the channel, I suppose. It really just feels like I'm starting yet another JRPG series here. And I don't know why I do this to myself, but I mean, they're like super fun, and I love Yu-Gi-Oh, so I'm looking forward to learning a lot more about it. That said, I'm not really sure exactly what the scope of this video series is going to cover. What I do know about Yu-Gi-Oh is that there is quite a lot of lore behind the cards, at least, as well as potentially a lot of lore behind the creation of the series itself, maybe even the anime too. The only anime that I've watched from Yu-Gi-Oh is 5Ds. I don't think I finished it though, and the only experience I have of playing the game is with Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. I haven't touched that in quite a long time though. Also, if you're new here, the way that we cover these sort of like super long videos is that I usually split them up into parts so that I can more easily manage it into my recording schedule. Considering the Yu-Gi-Oh! Iceberg itself is also split into parts, this will probably be part 1.1. Sort of a similar naming scheme to what we do for our fighting game retrospective reactions. But of course, before we get into the video, please make sure to go support Bumbles. Link at the very top of the description, like always. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a lot of phenomenal card art, and that was mostly my draw towards the series. I had so much fun trying out all the different archetypes, even the ones that, couldn't really be played because they didn't function very well within their own logic, or their own mechanics that were created around them, or they just weren't meta. I just really enjoyed building all the different decks.
Yu-Gi-Oh! I've been doing this for a while now, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been a part of it for nearly the entire time. Yu-Gi-Oh! As a part of my life has been there since as long as I could read. I'd look at the cards, I'd take them to school with me, get them taken away at school, I'd play with my brother, my friends, at locals. It helped me meet some of my best friends, my worst enemies. The person I am now is because of my connection to this game. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has meant so much to me that I wanted to try and pay back what it's given me in some form. And I thought, what better way than by cataloging a metric ton of its history? Why not make an iceberg? And then I remembered. I did. I made the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Iceberg and it stunk big time. Does anybody here want to hear a loser with no self-confidence write and voice his first ever scripted video without even knowing all the information on the iceberg? People hated the Robo voice, but at least he was doing a good job. You gotta give him more credit.
Okay, to be fair, we all start from somewhere. Please do not go and watch our earlier videos. I had no idea what I was doing, and listening back on it, I sound so much different. Well, for one thing, I am a lot older now, but I think there's also an aspect of you're like so nervous in front of the camera that you sort of like tense up your vocal cords, and then your voice just starts sounding kind of squeaky. You could really tell, like watching it, that you have very little confidence in what you're saying. It does serve as a nice reminder though of where you started and where you're currently at, and I'm sure like a couple of years down the line from now, I'll come back and maybe watch this video and cringe at myself with how stupid I sound.
Daddy, why do they hate me, Daddy?
Oh, son. They only hate you because you're beautiful. I mean, it was at least good enough for this guy to steal it, so...
Wait, what? So, wait, did bro just straight up re-upload the video? Oh no. I guess that's just a testament to the quality of it.
I'm doing something right. I've always wanted to fix up that piece of junk, but it took the right time and place for me to want to do it, and I think I finally found it. If I'm getting a 100th episode, I want it to go on for a while. In order to make sure there's zero confusion about anything on the list, I've constructed it myself. Over 200 entries personally curated by myself that span the anime, manga, video games, and of course, the TCG. I tried my best to find a nice gradient from stuff known by even casual fans, all the way down to stuff that would make people who have been playing the game for years swear I made it up. Even the topics you know about going in, I hope my research can reveal a little something about it you might not have known before. We have 8 layers to get through, and to the people who are worried that now I'll be exclusively covering the Yu-Gi-Oh! Iceberg for the rest of the year, don't worry, I'll still be doing my normal content in between parts of the Iceberg, Even I can get bored sometimes. I can't be doing this all the time.
Same. Exact same. I understand that feeling so much. Like, especially when you're doing YouTube, you usually want to be focusing on one particular thing and do like one series or whatever, because that's what people subscribe for, right? They're here to see that one thing that you do. But man, doing only one thing for the rest of the time would be so boring. If I had committed to that, then we'd still be like a Warhammer 40k channel. And don't get me wrong, I love Warhammer, but that's not all that there is out there. There's so many new and cool things out there to discover that I don't know anything about yet. So while I know that for a lot of you guys, whenever you maybe get like a notification from the channel of a video that you're just not really interested in, and the thing that you're waiting for doesn't show up for like a week or two, or maybe a couple months. I understand that it can be kind of disappointing, but that's me. I love to learn, I love to explore, and I don't really see that changing in the foreseeable future. So yeah, I'm sorry.
Layer 1 is Casual Observer. You've seen a Yu-Gi-Oh card. You even know that Yu-Gi-Oh's hair is spiky. You might even be my dad, who can name Elemental Hero Bubble Man and no other cards. This is the caliber of people this layer is meant to catch up to speed. Oh, by the way, I know that most icebergs get scary by the end, but I'm telling you right now that's not gonna happen. Oh no, Yu-Gi-Oh! Caused a world war! That's a layer 5 topic at best, buddy. Nice try.
What the hell? Honestly, I wouldn't mind it if future wars were fought with Yu-Gi-Oh! Duels.
Kazuki Takahashi.
Ah, man. Did this come out at around the time when he passed away? It really sucked to hear of his passing, but if I recall the details of his death correctly, that he had saved other people too. We'll probably get into that here, but regardless, mad respect to the dude.
Born on October 4th, 1961, Kazuo Takahashi grew up in Tokyo, Japan, and from a young age had been infatuated with manga like Mazinger Z and Devilman. However, this love for art was not something that was appreciated by his teachers in school, ending up with him getting the nickname, the Poop Machine.
What the hell?
That was because teachers would tell him all he was good for was eating, sleeping, and pooping. The constant put-downs, though, only spurred Takahashi to try harder to achieve his dream of working in the manga industry. And in the second year of high school, he would apply to join Tezuka Productions, an animation studio founded by the Osamu Tezuka. Astro Boy, Blackjack, and Dororo, the man is the father of all anime and manga. And to work as a background artist at that studio must have been a dream of Takahashi's.
So wait, what am I looking at exactly? I did watch the Dororo anime, but like, what is this 3D CGI that I'm looking at? Was there a Dororo game? I guess, yeah, I shouldn't be surprised.
Unfortunately, it would remain just a dream. His application was denied as his art hadn't yet reached the industry standard. Even though it was a setback, it wasn't enough to throw Takahashi off his course, as soon he began submitting manga one-shots to Shogakukan's Shonen Sunday magazine. One of those one-shots, Ing, Love Ball, was actually the winner of the Shogakukan New Comic Award and would end up being published in the magazine, which would also land him a role as the artist on the manga adaptation of a sports anime called Gokyu Choji Ikeman. Unfortunately, despite living out his dream as a manga artist, he wasn't seeing the sort of success that made for a livable wage, as he experienced such extreme poverty during his 20s that other mangaka like George Morikawa of Hajime no Ippo fame feared for his well-being, calling his home dilapidated and Showa era.
Yikes. Regardless of the age, it's just hard to get work as an artist, even harder to make a living out of it. And I think that's something a lot of people sort of take for granted or just never really think about or realize. Because the people who are like at the top of the game when it comes to that sort of stuff, they make it look easy. Oh, they just draw something, they make something, and then they make millions out of it. Like, I could do that too. But the road that it took them to get there was not the easiest journey. It was very bumpy, it was very rocky.
Showa era was 60 years ago. It was the 80s and this man still didn't have electricity in his home. Eventually,
Bruh.
the lack of running water and abundance of credit card debt was getting to Kazuo, and he decided to try to shift his efforts towards Weekly Shonen Jump, now going under his much more recognized professional name, Kazuki Takahashi. While he was working for Shonen Jump was when he would finally strike gold. He would combine his passion for tabletop games with a heavy dose of occultism to create a story about a boy with an alternate personality who would punish the wicked by forcing them to play for their lives in deadly games.
Now, this is something that I do know about the series, is that the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh! Was not very familiar with card games. And we all know this, like, seeing from the anime how a lot of random BS could just show up and be like, oh yeah, this card is not affected by the trap because she's a woman, or something like that. Regardless though, it's still a lot of great fun, and the legacy it spawned after that is just incredible to see. We're still on layer 1 of the iceberg, like there's so many more to go. We don't even know all of it yet.
And from there came Yu-Gi-Oh! The Egyptian theming was also landed on due to the culture's ties to the origins of many games commonly played throughout the world. Yu-Gi-Oh! Was unlike anything Takahashi had ever made before, because it made money. Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a smash hit when it was released, and managed to become a mainstay of the Shonen Jump comic for years to come, running from 1996 to 2004. However, as the manga advanced, an element would be introduced that changed the landscape of the franchise forever. See, before a certain point, Yugi would always play a different game with each of his victims, usually related to whatever they had done wrong. With the introduction of Seto Kaiba, Yugi would introduce a new game called Magic and Wizards.
Magic the Gathering? Actually, was Magic the Gathering around since then? I don't know the timeline, but now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure I did a lore video on Magic the Gathering way back when. A lot of really cool lore, at least during the early days of the series. But yeah, that's a fact I didn't know, that Yu-Gi-Oh! Would play different games against all these people.
This was of course based on the Naruto card game. The game proved to be a very popular part of the story, and after a massive influx of fan letters asking to see more of the game, it would eventually take on a much more prevalent role, becoming the first time a punishment game was ever repeated. This would eventually see gaming company Konami reach out in an attempt to adapt the game into a physical TCG.
Like, money.
With some retooling, the game would become Yu-Gi-Oh! And the manga would slowly retool itself to act more as a vehicle for the card game itself, using the characters from the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Story to play the game. From there, the rest is history. Yu-Gi-Oh! Would take the world by storm, selling millions of cards, and is still going strong to this day. Kazuki Takahashi himself would stay involved in the series through a few of its spin-offs, mainly overseeing each series' manga adaptation, but would eventually be much more hands-off as the series progressed. From here, Takahashi would go on a hiatus from any serious manga creation, before returning in 2013 with a manga one-shot called Drum. He would also team up with Marvel of all companies in 2019 to illustrate an Iron Man and Spider-Man crossover for Jump Comics. Given his obvious love for American comics, the opportunity to make a comic for one of the two biggest companies on Earth must have been unreal.
Well, especially where he started, too. Can't forget, the dude was just not making any money at all and didn't have electricity even, and now look where he is.
Fortunately, we're all too familiar with how this story ends. On July 4th, 2022, a mother was screaming for help, as her 12-year-old daughter and her boyfriend were caught in a riptide at Okinawa's Mermaid Grotto diving spot. 2 US soldiers who were visiting the spot to go diving themselves recounted that before a proper rescue team could arrive, they saw a tall, thin scuba diver race towards the scene out of nowhere to help get the two out of danger. And while both the girl and the boyfriend made it back to shore, the scuba diver who saved them went missing in the chaos. 2 days later, the body of the scuba diver was recovered and found to be Kazuki Takahashi. Takahashi had been a lifelong fan of swimming, and made it a point to come to Okinawa every year in July to go scuba diving at the Mermaid Grotto diving spot. The details surrounding his death were kept under wrap for months following his passing, and while the instinct is to say it meant foul play was involved, the real reason was nothing like that. Police didn't release the information because they didn't want to traumatize the young girl that Takahashi had saved by letting her know that her hero perished while saving her. The final thing that Kazuki Takahashi did with his life was give it up to help others. The outpouring...
God. I don't even really know what to say, but my guy was an absolute legend. To come so far in life from like the literal bottom of the barrel to the top of the world, and to have it all end like this, I respect this man deeply.
Of grief from the Yu-Gi-Oh! And wider manga community was vast, with figures spanning from prominent personalities in the space of the game, to other manga artists, to voice actors, to animators, all paying tribute to the fallen artist. It may be small, but to this very day, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Subreddit has kept its banner as the final panel of the Pharaoh Atem from the original manga, with him walking into the afterlife with a thumbs up. Without Kazuki Takahashi, the lives of millions of people would be without the joy and friendship that Yu-Gi-Oh! Led to. Directly or indirectly, he changed the world for the better by sharing his love of games, unparalleled artistic ability, and unforgettable stories. A creator like him is truly one in a million, and I couldn't stand the idea of starting this with anything else than the one man responsible for all of this. What does Pot of Greed do?
Oh, Jesus.
The amount of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards that remain as cornerstones of the franchise, in the way that Pikachu is to Pokemon, or Agumon is to Digimon, is short and exclusive. It's normally saved for the ace monsters of important characters from the anime, like Dark Magician, Blue Eyes White Dragon, and Red Eyes Black Dragon, or cards that were famous in the game for their usefulness, like Jinzo and Monster Reborn. Pot of Greed squarely falls into the latter category. A card almost as ubiquitous as any flavor of dragon. Pot of Greed has the shortest effect text in the game.
Oh boy,
3 words, draw 2 cards.
It is insane how much more consistent this makes your deck. Plus, with Yu-Gi-Oh! Being a card game that doesn't require resources to play any cards, you can just play as many cards as you want with only the normal summoning and limitations and whatever specific limitations are put on the cards. Like, obviously, this would be the most broken out of all of them. You'd have 3 of in your deck. You'd put in more if you could.
From when the game was just running normal monsters into each other, to the modern day with a rainbow of extra deck plays, Pot of Greed has, and always will be, an extremely broken card. Having more stuff to do than your opponent is often what decides games, and Pot of Greed makes it so any deck that plays it is at an automatic advantage. Of course, you can't play it today, as it was banned a long time ago, but its legacy in the game is still felt to this very day.
I guess it makes sense for it to be a card back in the day, because like back then you would normal summon and then maybe your monster would hopefully survive, then you could tribute summon it for something a little bit bigger, and I think like old OG Yu-Gi-Oh! Was basically like who could build the biggest tower monster and smack it into your opponent as many times as possible. But if it was allowed in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! The game would break. It is kind of almost there already, but Pot of Greed would seal the deal.
Cards have been made in Pot of Greed's image that mimic its power,
yeah, all the other
only
pots,
a fraction
they're
of
just
it.
not as good.
Pot of Avarice will let you draw 2 cards, but only if you shuffle back 5 monsters from your graveyard into your deck first. The Pot of Desires lets you draw 2 cards after you banish the top 10 cards of your deck.
Yep.
Pot of Extravagance lets
They're
you
still
draw
really
2
good
cards,
to use, though.
but only if you banish 6 cards from your extra deck. You want to know the best part? Even with all of these cards having much steeper costs and restrictions that mean you can't use multiple in a turn, or that it has to be the very first action you take in a turn, all 3 of these cards have been extremely playable and even ban-worthy themselves for how good they are. Face it, drawing 2 cards is such a good effect that getting rid of the top 10 cards of your deck is a fairly reasonable cost. Other cards have also been made to support Pot of Greed that have been rendered moot by its banning, including Spirit of the Pot of Greed, Jar Robber, and Avatar of the Pot. Put it away. If your first thought when you saw Pot of Greed was, God damn, do I need to put a Diet Coke in that thing? You're in luck, because they do actually sell recreations of not just Pot of Greed, but every member of the Pot family. But that's just what the card is. What is the entry itself talking about? Well, for that, we're going to need to check out the anime. In the anime, duels have to be tightly scripted. And with only 5 cards to start and a few draw phases, it can be hard to believably get characters to the cards they need to continue the duel. As a result, Pot of Greed was often used in the anime as a way to refresh a character's hand and get them to the key cards they would need to carry out the duel as intended.
That makes sense.
The 2 cards they drew would also always be the exact 2 cards they needed for them to start their
I mean, obviously, the heart of the cards is with them.
comeback. Joey isn't drawing Swordsman of Landstar and Battle Warrior off of Pot of Greed. No, that's Baby Dragon and Time Wizard every time. This was a tactic that was used up through Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, as the show slowly shifted away from it with Pot of Greed's banning in the real game, and not to get players' hopes up that the card was returning. A consequence of this choice to include Pot of Greed in so many duels is that the characters would not only declare their use of the card, but then announce the effect of Pot of Greed every time they used it. Thank you, but
what does
we
it
all
do?
know what it does. I just used it. Stop reminding me! The real reason this was done was quite simply that you have to assume that every episode is somebody's first episode. No matter how mundane the effect is, you have to write it with the idea that someone might turn the TV on randomly and find the show. And if you don't explain what the cards do and how they function, it will be a mess for new viewers.
I guess so. Perhaps that's a consideration a lot of longer running series have to have, but maybe not so much for stuff like seasonal anime and things like that.
That's why a card like Negate Attack needs to have its effect explained, despite doing so with its own name.
Negate Attack.
But reasoning or not, people caught on very fast that Pot of Greed had its effect explained to the point of redundancy. And once people noticed, they started to joke about it. The Pot of Greed trend really began to pick up steam in 2014, when YouTuber Wheeler uploaded a video stitching together every instance of the card's use in the anime. The original video has since been taken down, but a recreation by YouTuber Penguins in Pajamas 2 still remains with over 3 million views. Other videos would come along to expound on the trend by treating the effect of Pot of Greed like it was difficult to understand, and that it took a lot of effort to explain a simple effect. The most prominent example is from acclaimed White Chamber YouTuber Rada, who published a video on it in 2016. A video he loves like a firstborn son. The trend found new life in 2019 when YouTuber and streamer Wayne Radio TV played the VR game Duel Monsters VR, and played Pot of Greed over and over and over again as his opponent gets increasingly frustrated. The meme eventually got simplified and broken down to its most basic form possible, asking, "What does Pot of Greed do?" This joke has 2 sides to it. To those outside of the TCG space, it's a fun joke that calls back to some silly internet videos and a game and anime they kind of remember. To anybody inside the TCG space, it is one of the most overused jokes of all time. I would know, as I have a very personal and very negative experience with the joke from my time in college. I was a shy little mouse trying to eat my lunch in the common area of one of the buildings when I see a group of guys all playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I thought this was my chance. I could make some friends, find some people to play the game with, and have a good time. My heart sunk to the most distant, deepest depths when I heard them shouting. F***ing shouting! What does pot of greed do? It wasn't that they were saying the joke, it's they were saying it over and over again, each time getting louder. I couldn't bear the shame of knowing what they were talking about and went back to my dorm room, knowing this is how the world would see me if I admitted to knowing what a predaplant was.
Hey, Predaplats are cool, okay? I actually really love the style of the cards. I played them a little bit in Master Duel.
Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged Series. Fan works surrounding Yu-Gi-Oh! Are incredibly easy to come by on the internet, in the form of both narrative pieces that seek to make their own series in the image of the original, and less flattering works that tend to poke fun at the source material in all its insanity. The most famous Yu-Gi-Oh! Fan work, though, didn't just change the fan base, it changed internet culture forever. Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged Series. Created by Kamen Rider Bud aficionado Martin Billany, better known as Little Karibo. Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged Series served as a sort of humorous fan dub of the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Series, taking the concepts and characters from the original and reworking them for a more comedic setting. True to its name as well, episode lengths were truncated majorly, abridging 22-minute episodes into much smaller and more digestible experiences, often taking multi-part duels and shrinking them down to a single episode's length. The series is the very first example of an abridged anime series, which, while they've largely—
Yeah, I was gonna ask, was it the first one ever? That's really cool, though. I myself haven't seen a lot of these abridged series out there on YouTube, and I know there's often references and jokes to these series, but yeah, just never got around to them. Don't know if I'd be into it.
Gone away in the years since, once ruled YouTube. Every series under the sun had an abridged version that followed in the footsteps of Martin's work. Dragon Ball Z abridged by Team 4.
I've heard a lot of references from Dragon Ball Z, but I haven't seen the original show, and I have not seen the abridged one.
Star, Haruhi Suzumiya abridged by My Toaster is Moist, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure abridged by Antfish, Dub of the North Star by Weekly Tube Show, the list goes on and on. The show has continued to release ever since the original episode all the way back in 2006, as recently as 3 months ago as of writing this. The show has adapted every arc of the anime up into the final season, growing and changing with the times as the series' own established lore started to wrap back around on itself and influence later plotlines. The Orichalcos arc in particular seems to be a more meta look at the show as a whole, looking back on older choices like making Weevil Underwood and Rex Raptor Beavis and Butthead, and seeing what can be done to tell a more dramatic story, not with the Yu-Gi-Oh! Characters, but the abridged characters specifically. It's one of the most interesting fan works on the entire internet for the fact it's gone on for so long, outlasting every other abridged series, and has changed so much from a simple parody to a love letter to the show itself and the culture that surrounds it. Obviously, it's not a show for everybody, as the humor in it is very subjective, and that length that it's been going on for has led to older episodes being— dog rough. The minorest of minor controversies.
You gotta start from somewhere. I can only imagine.
Broke out when Martin went back to older episodes and added a disclaimer that the jokes don't represent his current views and were products of the time. Ultimately, those older jokes being there is a testament to how this is an enduring and ever-changing piece of internet history.
I remember seeing a particular post that showcased a disclaimer from Warner Brothers, I believe, on some of their older cartoons that they had on streaming services. That there would be a disclaimer talking about how these were viewpoints from the time period that this piece of art was made, and that they weren't going to censor it, but just to let people be aware that this is how things were back then. I think having those sort of disclaimers is so much better than censoring the source material and just cutting things out in a way that makes the original piece of work just not the piece of art that it was intended to be. Because by censoring something like that, you're not really acknowledging how things were, and not acknowledging how things were is maybe even worse than having had it actually occur.
That's been going on for 20 years of on-again, off-again production. Seriously, the amount of times the Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged channel has been taken down is insane. That's on top of in-show cancellations that were either jokes or meant to stick. Speaking of jokes, Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged spawned a whole host of different memes and inside jokes from its characters, like Kaiba's catchphrase, "Screw the rules, I have money," or Joey's Brooklyn Ray.
Okay, hey. That one I have heard before. I've heard variations of that as well. Didn't know it spawned from this series. Oh, and also, yeah, very understandable the channel would get terminated. Every so often, Japanese companies will come through and they'll absolutely destroy any, like, anime reaction channel out there. And originally, this channel, like the TheLegitWeebs channel here, started as an anime reaction channel. But we had decided to go with full-length reactions, where it was just a timer and people could open up their own copy of the episode, in order to avoid all this sort of potential copyright issues. And I do recall that a lot of other anime reaction channels that had started at around the same time that we did don't exist anymore because of these sort of sweeps from Japanese animation companies, or I guess their representatives, let's say.
Both of which have been so lampshaded, there are probably more examples of them making jokes about the catchphrases than there are instances of them being catchphrases. There's also the actual 4Kids dialogue joke that references when a line from the original series was so odd that no change was needed to make it funny. Think Digital Dummy. There would also be song parodies sung in character, like Brooklyn Rage, which parodied Lady Gaga's Bad Romance, or Leather Pants, sung by Bakura and Merrick, which parodied Lady Gaga's Bad Romance. Okay, he had a favorite song. I don't want it to sound like Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged was a negative thing at all. No, it paved the way for so many creative types to express their love for their favorite anime series, and even gave some people the on-ramp to work in major projects in anime dubbing. On a personal note, I've been watching this series since damn near elementary school. Ever since I found it in the favorites playlist of a total Pokemon Island YouTuber. That's alright, you can talk about how badass I am. It's a cornerstone of internet culture that's influenced a lot of stuff, whether you realize it or not. And it's impossible to argue that without Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, a lot of people wouldn't be into Yu-Gi-Oh! Nowadays. Exodia the Forbidden One. Another card like Pot of Greed that transcends being just a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card and becomes a staple of the culture surrounding Yu-Gi-Oh!
I wonder where the idea for Exodia came from. Was there like other card games out there that had a similar archetype that had a particular win condition like this? Like, get these cards in your hand and you win the game sort of thing? I don't know too much about the whole Magic the Gathering side of things or any other multitude of card games out there, but I am very familiar with Shadowverse, and the only thing I can really think of that is sort of similar to that is just in OG Shadowverse, where you'd have Havencraft just style out the game with an amulet that said, if this number of turns pass, you win the game. But it's not really Exodia. Yeah, I don't know. But this is probably just due to my inexperience with all the other card games.
Exodia the Forbidden One is an effect monster. One of the first 5 ever released, actually, in the original Legends of the Blue Eyes White Dragon pack.
The first 5?
What a misbalanced lineup, by the way. Destroy a spell, destroy a trap, destroy a monster. Win the game! Yes, with this one card, you can end the entire game in an instant. Only problem is you need 4 other cards to do it. By having the left arm, right arm, left leg, and right leg of the Forbidden One in your hand at the same time, with the head of Exodia, you will assemble all 5 pieces and win the game on the spot. In Yu-Gi-Oh!, this is known as an alternate win condition, which is a way to win the game that doesn't involve reducing your opponent's life points to 0 or causing them to deck out. And there are loads of them across the entire game. The Final Countdown, Destiny Board, Ghost Trick Angel of Mischief, one of the most recent—
Oh yeah, that's right, Ghost Trick. I got by Ghost Trick once in Master Duel, it was funny. I don't recall the exact effect, but I think it had to do with, like, you win the game if you have this many monsters stacked underneath this Xyz monster. something like that.
PAX, Rage of the Abyss, included a brand new alt-win condition in Fireworks Celebration. But none of them have come even close to the amount of iconicity and support that Exodia has received. Its most noteworthy appearance was in the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, where it served as the climactic finale to the first duel between Yugi and Kaiba, leading to the famous exchange where Kaiba tells Yugi to draw his last pathetic card, only for Yugi to draw the exact card he needed to win the game on the spot. Only a few episodes later, though, and Weevil Underwood throws the pieces of Exodia off of a boat and into the ocean.
Bruh.
Because the main character having a mechanism to win the game instantly would make for a very bad show. Exodia himself is based on the story of Osiris from Egyptian mythology, having been cut up into 5 different pieces and thrown into a river. Later still, one of Merrick's rare hunters uses 3 of every limb of Exodia to try to hedge his bets to go for the instant kill, only for Yugi to point out how inconsistent and weak this makes his deck. This particular instance is in reference to the actual practice of loading your deck up with Exodia parts and draw cards to create a nearly unbeatable deck that won before the opponent ever got to play. This eventually ended when the Exodia parts were limited to only 1 copy each, where they've stayed ever since. Exodia's influence and notoriety have been widespread both in the game itself, but also in pop culture, as he and the scenes he appears in are frequently used in memes to showcase an unbeatable situation. This particular image of Yugi revealing the final piece of Exodia especially gets used very frequently.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I never realized this was that exact moment. I do recall Kaiba's face here being absolutely perfect with that reveal. So hey, awesome. Yeah, we're learning a lot of the origins of the memes. I'm sure the further and further down we go, there's going to be some real deep cuts that I never realized were even like linked to Yu-Gi-Oh!
When trying to hit somebody with a sudden turnabout in an argument. As for the game itself, it didn't take very long for a whole host of different versions of Exodia to be made that tried to capture the magic of that original scene and turn it from a set of 5 cards into a proper deck. These new versions include Exodia Necros, Exod Master
never seen
of the
these
Guard,
before.
Exodius the Ultimate Forbidden Lord, the legendary Exodia Incarnate, and Exodia the Legendary Defender. In one of the most recent sets released in the TCG, the Infinite Forbidden, a whole new set of Exodia support was revealed.
Really?
The Millennium Monsters. These take old normal monsters like Millennium Golem, Millennium Shield, and Sengenjin, and reworks them as cards meant to enable the summon of the unstoppable Exodia Incarnate, using all 5 pieces as fusion material rather than pieces of an automatic win. There is one other Exodia, though. True Exodia. This was a gag card revealed in a 2020 art box, including various art books of Kazuki Takahashi.
Wait, if the only monsters on the field are this card you control and 4 forbidden 1 normal monsters with different names, your opponent wins the duel. No, you win the game! Damn, that's the ultimate reverse Uno card.
And Yu-Gi-Oh! Artwork, that when assembled with all 4 other pieces of Exodia, let your opponent win the duel automatically. To this very day, he's endured in both popular culture and the culture of the game as one of Yu-Gi-Oh's most beloved cards.
Actually, I made a joke about it, but now I think about it, that would be like one of the sickest ways to lose ever. And even if you won the duel, you will have felt like you lost because, by God, my opponent had to hand me the game literally. Oh, I don't know if I could emotionally recover from something like that.
And as long as cards are being made, there will be new Exodias.
Yeah. It was cool to know that the TCG received new support for it, too. I didn't realize. Haven't been keeping
Dramatic
up.
Crossroads. Did you think we were done talking about memes yet? Because don't worry, we're not. If you've been on social media for some length of time, you're familiar with this image.
Wait,
it's a common
is that a Yu-Gi-Oh card?
To show 2 separate choices that can be made from the same starting point, one being good and the other being bad. It's an image that has ascended its original meme status and has become a template of sorts for people to apply all sorts of different current events, fandoms, and situations. A quick visual shorthand for good and bad choices. The original post that this was based on was created by Twitter user Iris Heartfang, showing that 2012 bronies either became trans girls or white supremacists. I haven't shown the image yet, but I would hope you know which is on which side. So, are you ready for the big reveal? The artwork used in this meme is a Yu-Gi-Oh card.
Yeah.
More than that, it's not even a real Yu-Gi-Oh card. The card is called Dramatic Crossroads, and was used in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX anime in episode 47 by Chaz Princeton.
I've always known of the meme. This is what I was saying. It's like, there's going to be some deep cuts, so you know of the meme, but you didn't know it was from Yu-Gi-Oh! Here you go. Layer 1.
In the episode, Chaz is trying to win the affections of Alexis Rhodes and uses the effect of Dramatic Crossroads to transfer a card from his hand to the opponent's, and uses that to give her a love note. The card has never been officially printed as a legal card, though online proxies do exist.
Shoot your shot, my guy.
Konami has not leapt at the opportunity to print this card in the most hideous rarity they can and short print it to hell and back to squeeze as much money as they can out of people is beyond me.
Konami don't want money.
The God Cards. Another set of iconic cards from the original series, Obelisk the Tormentor, Slifer the Sky Dragon, and the Winged Dragon of Ra. These three cards represent the Egyptian...
I had so much respect for anybody that pulled out the God cards when I was playing Master Duel. Absolute Giga Chads, I tell you. They do not bend towards the will of the meta. They play their own game.
Gods Ra! Well, Slifer isn't a god of anything but business, but his Japanese name is the Sky Dragon of Osiris. And Obelisk... Okay, even in Japanese, Obelisk isn't a god, it's more of a monument. Regardless of their questionable divinity, these three cards were the focal point of the second and most popular arc of the original series, Battle City. Created by Duel Monsters creator Maximilian Pegasus, the Egyptian god cards were three cards made in the image of the actual gods represented on them: Slifer, Obelisk, and Ra. Using the image of a god on a trading card, though, is a massive sin. And while Pegasus was drafting up the cards, his entire excavation team in Egypt was killed. The only reason Pegasus didn't die alongside them was due to his Millennium item, the Millennium Eye. But if a simple rendering was enough to invoke their wrath, mass production would cause worldwide cataclysm. He tried handing off the cards to Egyptian Antiquities Secretary General Ishizu Ishtar, but her brother, Merrick Ishtar...
So this is where Shizu comes in, I say. I haven't seen Battle City, but I do know of this character. For pretty obvious reasons.
Stole Slifer and Ra and planned on using them to get revenge on the Pharaoh Atem, and then rule the world. Ishizu entrusted the final god card, Obelisk, to Seto Kaiba, and gave him the idea to start the Battle City tournament as a way to draw out Merrick and retrieve the two other god cards. Kaiba was on board with the idea, but only because it meant he could duel Yugi again and prove he was superior. In a duel with one of Merrick's henchmen, Strings, Yugi managed to get Slifer for himself. And the triad is set. Yugi had Slifer, Kaiba had Obelisk, and Merrick had Ra. The god cards are special in the anime for their ability to resist the effects of every other card in the game, and be truly invincible to anything but another god card. Outside of cases like Ground Erosion, which affected the zone the god card was on, and Blast held in a tribute, which was hidden inside of Obelisk. Ha! Yugi! Surely you know a god is invincible to all cards in the game! I'm not targeting your god card, Kaiba. I'm targeting the ground it's standing on! You so fucking much, Yugi. These cards were highly sought after in any physical form after their initial reveal, with fans clamoring for the chance to play with them in a real deck. Originally, only proxies that were illegal to use in a real duel were released to resemble the anime art of the cards with their unique card borders. But in 2013, in Battle Pack 2 War of the Giants, playable legal god cards would finally be released! And they were alright. I mean, you gotta put a lot of resources into summoning them, since they require
yeah, they're cool to look at, but from a playing standpoint, not so much. What you would see a lot more though was I think it was like raw sphere mode or something like that, where you could tribute 3 monsters in order to special summon it to the opponent's side of the field. I think it had that sort of effect. But you would see that being teched in certain decks in order to just get rid of particularly problematic cards on your opponent's board. You'd see that every so often, but I think what you would normally see more of was the kaiju cards. I actually really like the idea of the kaiju cards, but I don't think a pure kaiju deck was ever that good. Neat concept though.
Require 3 tributes for a tribute summon and can't be special summoned, and unlike the original show versions, these ones were all too vulnerable. Their summons couldn't be negated or interrupted with something like Trap Hole, but once they hit the field, they're helpless.
They can get blown out,
Man-Eater Bug could eat God, regardless of position. Ra especially, despite being the strongest in the show and being placed at the top of the divine hierarchy in the manga, was practically worthless, as its effects worked against each other, having you give up all your life points to increase its attack, but then needing you to pay life points you didn't have to destroy cards. The only one of the god cards that saw any level of success was Obelisk in frog decks, which had the ability to output several monsters,
so
but
you could summon
nothing to really do with them.
Obelisk.
So you get a monster that requires 3 tributes, has 4,000 attack, and can destroy all your opponent's stuff. Yeah, I guess that'll work. Come on down to Wetlands, bitch, we got a spot for ya. To call these 3 letdowns would be an understatement. People were left wondering, where's the rest? Well, that would come in the form of support cards released years after their release to try and get people to play them in a cohesive deck. Thunder Force Attack, Fist of Fate, and Blaze Cannon recreated the god's signature attacks. The revived Sky God, Magical Trick Mirror, and Dark Spell Rejuvenation let you revive the gods if they died, which they will, and Soul Crossing let you use your opponent's entire field for the summon of your god card.
There you go. I was thinking, yeah, that's right, for the tribute summon. You could use Soul Crossing instead to summon out the god cards, which I have been hit by before. It wasn't very pleasant. But then again, I was also playing Witchcrafters, so it doesn't really like I could do anything about it.
Then there's all the support exclusive to Ra in the attempt to make him playable in any fashion. Reactor Slime, Guardian Slime, and Egyptian God Slime decided that what was needed to make Ra function was to turn him into a slime YouTuber. Now, this could be where the discussion ends. But as it turns out, not only Duel Monsters has its set of God cards. No, up until Vrains, there's a card, or set of cards, in every series that is analogous to the God cards in some way, either directly or indirectly. In GX, not only were all the dorms named after the Egyptian gods, with Kaiba's Obelisk dorm being the best one, and Yugi's Slifer dorm being the worst one, they also had the sacred beasts of Raphael, Lord of Phantasm, Haman, Lord of Striking Thunders, and Uriah, Lord of Searing Flame.
You know, judging from the designs of the sacred beast, I should have known. I never put 2 and 2 together for some reason. There were a few people that I ran into who played Sacred Beasts. I never tried them out myself, though.
In 5Ds, there were 2 god card analogs in the same arc, with the Nordic gods of Odin, Loki, and Thor being divine attribute in the anime just like the god cards, as well as divine beast type. The other god card analog is Zushin the Sleeping Giant, which, in contrast to the other god card analogs, is considered trash in the show it's from. Its power is directly compared to the god cards, but it's such a hard card to summon that it's treated like a bad joke when the team that uses him attempts to summon him. He's so bad that it's the most commonly printed card of all time in the anime, and when they actually succeed in summoning him, the entire crowd holds up their copies in support. Yusei beats them though because the Grand Prix arc is a fucking disaster. Zexal's god card is very literal this time, as the Numeron code is the final life force of the dragon who created the universe, and has the ability to alter reality and fate to the user's command. In Arc 5, the god card is Supreme King Zark, a dragon made of the four fragmented
God.
parts of the ultimate duelist's soul. They didn't print him with his special border because they hate money. Vrains
Yeah.
broke the trend by lacking a card with the
I
weight
remember
of all
that
the
card.
previous ones. Though, if you really want to stretch it, you could say that the Arrival Cybers at Ignister, that's what it's called, could be considered a god card.
Really? I haven't seen the show. From the design, doesn't really give that, but I guess from the effect, I have gotten got by this before. Especially if you don't have any sort of removal for this card in particular, then it's kind of Jover, because it's going to have a lot of attack, depending on how they summon it.
Since it merges the will of all 6 of the Ignis together into one, with them each representing all of the different attributes, so what's left but divine? 2,222 card Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck.
What the hell?
Deck construction in Yu-Gi-Oh! Really only has 3 hard and fast rules. You gotta put the main deck cards in the main.
Wait, I was always under the impression that it was like 40 to 60. Was there a time where it was never, like, limited? Or is that still actually a rule?
Deck and extra deck cards in the extra deck. You can only have 3 copies of a card in your deck, and you have to have at least 40 cards, but no more than 60. And for the
Yeah.
extra deck, only 15. These rules have been around since the beginning of the game. Is what I would say, if not for that last rule. See, originally in Yu-Gi-Oh!, that 40 card minimum was enforced, since we can't have a deck of 5 cards, which are just the 5 pieces of Exodia.
That would be great.
But the upper limit didn't exist. A Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck
we didn't have the upper limit set? Oh boy. I feel like I heard of this story before, in passing somewhere. Did some dude bring like 2,222 cards to a locals, and because of that, after that, they made the rule? I assume he brought that many cards because he was trying to make a point, or I guess content out of it, I don't know.
could be as big as you wanted, and there was no rule in place saying you couldn't make it that big. Well, clearly this is a problem.
Yeah.
No upper deck limit is a completely unsustainable standard. A card like That Grass Looks Greener comes around.
Bro, imagine you have That Grass Looks Greener and you're playing a full deck of tier limits, that you have that many cards in your deck. You just throw them down. Your opponent's playing 40. Oh boy. They're in for a bad time, and so are you because of the amount of effects that you have to resolve.
Chaos. Konami didn't see a problem, though, so two duelists decided they were gonna have to do something about it. Enter Mike Schwey and Tobias Hayner, who would change the course of the game at the German National Championship in 2007. See, Mike was actually a very prominent judge in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Scene at the time, proving himself to be
gotcha.
incredibly knowledgeable about rulings for specific cards and all aspects of the game.
Okay, makes sense. We were trying to make a point. That's fair. Because not having an upper limit is ridiculous.
Tobias, meanwhile, was an employee of Konami, who helped to cover the events and catalog what happened. When the pair arrived to the event, clad in their Sunday best, they arrived with a perfectly legal deck that in no way broke the rules that Konami had set forward. The only problem was the deck was 2,222 cards big.
I've seen this image before.
The pair had custom built a deck box to house the whole thing, and had to bring a separate apparatus so they could stand the deck box up. You know, so they could play with the deck. When Mike's first round opponent sat across from him, having brought a water pistol to fight a machine gun, he quickly learned phase 2 of Mike's plan. Mike would activate a card like Reinforcements of the Army, add a
Oh
warrior
my
from his
God.
deck to his hand, and then 30 minutes would pass before the turn would resume.
Well, yeah.
In Yu-Gi-Oh!, when you purposefully move a card from your deck to another area, like your hand, the field, or the graveyard, you
Doesn't
have to
count as
shuffle your
time.
deck afterwards to make sure that you can't stack it.
Oh my god, that's right. Oh, holy shit, shuffling that many cards. Ooh. And I'm assuming that Bumbles is showing this particular footage because he's using reasoning in a deck that doesn't really play that any monsters, so you just dump your entire deck into the graveyard. Very effective strategy for some decks. Like, actually, was reasoning specifically like monsters that were 4 stars and under? like stuff that you can normal summon. It feels about right, because I do recall using this when I was playing Witchcrafters in order to dump like my spells into the grave, as well as I think I use this in Sky Strikers, and maybe in I forgot the name of the deck. It was like a deck that consisted of Dark Souls boss monsters, essentially. And you would have like a field spells and spell cards in order to summon them out onto the field. Certain normal summonable monsters that could summon them out of the deck and stuff like that. Was it like Gene Raider? I don't know. It's been too long. I really enjoyed the theme of that deck though, and I had some pretty good success with them too.
So imagine how long it's going to take to shuffle a deck with more cards in it than there have been years since Jesus was born. After giving some random player a 30-minute chance to use the bathroom, Mike bowed out of the tournament voluntarily. More so just doing this as a gag rather than trying to run it as a legitimate deck. This also had the intended effect of showing Konami that this was a completely unsustainable mechanic. And they decided to change the rules. In 2008, at the beginning of the Synchro era, they decided that a deck limit would be capped at 60 cards, and the extra deck size would be capped at 15. No one came in with a 300-card extra deck because it would impact the game significantly less, but it would still be put in place to keep it in congruity with the main deck's limit. On top of the fact that now Synchro monsters would be much more accessible than Fusion monsters, and they didn't want you stacking the deck with every good Synchro monster ever made. This is one of the very few times players have been able to influence the rules of the game by exploiting flaws. And the duo that pulled it off would go down in history forever as the Delinquent Duo. Season
props to
0.
them, though, for showing Konami.
Despite the Duel Monsters anime being the very first animated version of Yu-Gi-Oh! That many Western fans got to see, it wasn't the only version that had ever been created. In fact, what we're about to talk about predates the entire shift of the manga from the more varied amount of games into just Duel Monsters. The series that we now know as Yu-Gi-Oh! Was created in 2000 by Studio Gallop. In 1998, though, Toei Animation would acquire the rights to make a Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. 1998 was right in the transitory period from the original 3 arcs into the proper Yu-Gi-Oh! Storyline. And instead of going with the newest material, they would elect to start from the beginning in what's known as the School Arc. Now, despite being called Season 0, this doesn't really act as a prequel to the story you know, seeing as it adapts the story from what's essentially a different manga.
So, I mean, yeah, we wouldn't have the card games just yet. We maybe get to the part where we play against Kaiba and then we start playing with the cards.
And that's exactly the reason it has its infamous reputation. Growing up with the heavily censored version of the story, then going back to the original manga, is a trip. Down a flight of stairs into hell. Crimes that in the later animes and mangas would be settled with a duel are here made right by the Pharaoh, who acts as an executioner, challenging criminals to death games where they played for their lives. You try and extort money and beat up kids? You have to play Old Maid or get ripped apart by worms. Try and hold a diner hostage? Play Guess Which Finger I'm Holding Up or burst into flames. Steal a watch? Play a game of stopwatch or have your bones turned into clocks and gears.
Oh my god, Season 0 ain't pulling any punches. I like this. You don't get banished to the Shadow Realm. No, sir, you just die. Or even worse.
Most of these are simply illusions to keep the main character from turning into a mass murderer, but the imagery of some of them is haunting. The animation as a whole is very different from the Gallop era of Yu-Gi-Oh! And gives us a look into this alternate dimension of Yu-Gi-Oh! That we would have gotten if Magic and Wizards wasn't as big as it was. The more pastel and dreamlike coloring of the punishment game scenes especially don't look like anything else in the franchise, which makes this a really cool watch-through. It may not be the Yu-Gi-Oh! That you're familiar with, but that doesn't say anything about the quality of the show itself. It's a completely different experience, but a really good one too. The voice cast as well is entirely different, with Yugi taking the biggest shift as, instead of the deeper voice we're used to in both the sub and dub, it goes for the more typical voiceover trope of having a woman voice a young boy. Works for Yugi. jarring for Yami Yugi. If you're interested at all in checking it out, the channel Magic and Wizards has the whole thing in good quality with built-in subs, so you can watch along. The anime covers the school and Monster World arcs while leaving out the Death Tea arc in favor of a Villain of the Week format, rather than running the gauntlet through Kaiba's Death Park. If you feel like reading the manga that the show is based on, you can also pick up the first 7 volumes of the manga. Be warned though, this is far from the last time we're going to be looking back at those 7 volumes for information. 4Kids.
Oh boy.
Oh, brother, it's that time again, isn't it?
Here
Well,
we go.
if there's a better time to be named number 1 4Kids cock-gobbler, I can't think of it. So, let's get down to business. 4Kids was, / is, it's complicated, an anime dubbing company founded in 1970 by Mike Jermican and Stanley Weston, the guy who invented action figures in G.I. Joe. Real American turncoat, more like it. I see which side you joined. At the time, they were called Leisure Concepts. And as you can guess, they weren't really a dubbing company yet. Though they were absolutely still 4Kids. They developed toys and toy brands like Thundercats and worked in marketing with Nintendo. After a near-death experience when Bobby Kotick, that Bobby Kotick, purchased an amount of controlling shares in the company before selling them off not soon after, they decided to burn off their fingerprints on the hot stove and start a new life as 4Kids Entertainment.
You know, a near-death experience? Sounds about right. Oh, jeez, I got away with that one, but from what I know of 4Kids, I don't think this ends well.
It was during this change, and moving into the new millennium, that 4Kids would make its 2 biggest acquisitions that would change how the entire company functioned, acquiring the rights to air both Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon in America. Pokemon in the late 90s and early 2000s was as hot as a thing could be, topping the list of hottest franchises in the world and raking in millions of dollars.
Even nowadays,
dollars that suddenly fell into 4Kids' lap. The company was seeing its biggest success ever with these 2 franchises. But what exactly were they doing in order to earn all that money? Well, they couldn't air the original Japanese versions of the show due to both the language barrier and differences in standards and practices on television, so they would dub the show into English and do what's called localization.
Yeah, localization. It really sucks that there is some bad actors out there who localize things in whatever way they want to, creating a lot of misunderstandings with the source material in general. I will never forgive the localizers for Fire Emblem Engage, and I'm still baffled till today that a lot of these Japanese companies still work with these sort of people, but maybe they just don't know. I get that there is a certain level of a translation that has to happen where you can't directly translate something. That's usually the issue I run into, like even back when I came back here to Thailand, I was trying to learn Thai, and then you can't really directly translate things from English to Thai or from Thai to English, and it's just, it just makes it really weird, your sentence structure, and even nowadays I probably maybe speak a little bit differently from what you would expect me to say. But that doesn't mean that you can just randomly come up with stuff because you disagree with something the source material said. Or even worse, just completely cut out the entire dialogue. Like, I believe there was a particular case in Fire Emblem Fates, was it? Where there were 2 characters who actually talked with each other about, life as an assassin and whatnot, and what this war means to them. But then it was changed to just being completely silent, with 2 characters just staring at each other for an extended period of time, and then afterwards their relationship went up. It's just like, what? What the hell? But tangent aside, I think what we're going to mention here is probably the creation of the Shadow Realm, as well as potentially, jelly donuts when it came to the onigiri in Pokemon. That's another pretty famous localization thing that I know of from memes.
Localization is the process of taking concepts and ideas that may seem foreign in one market and making them suitable for another. People like to brush off localization as unnecessary and detrimental to your enjoyment of a
it's
project.
important.
But really, in a
do
case
it
like
right.
this, it was very necessary. Even a small peek into everyday Japanese culture shows that it's extremely different to Western culture.
Oh, yeah.
So a one-for-one translation would be, at best, extremely jarring, on top of more basic things like sentence structuring and phrases that don't translate. A big example can be found in Pokemon with Onigiri.
Ah, there you go.
Which barely exists in America now, and certainly didn't on a mass scale in the 90s. The infamous change was made to have Brock call rice balls jelly donuts. Important to note that according to the voice actor for Brock, Eric Stewart, this was a change made at the behest of the Pokemon Company themselves, as they wanted the show to appeal to multiple cultures regardless of barriers like culinary differences. However, the changes that would need to be made to Pokemon were nominal. A few jelly donuts here, a couple of lost episodes there.
Like, that's fine. It's funny, and I think nowadays you could probably just say onigiri, like, people would get it. I understand back then, those were different times, but yeah, some of the other stuff that we did, especially when it came to Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, wasn't there that one scene where we literally, like, edited out some dudes holding a gun? And so it was just them making fists at people? I'm pretty sure that was a thing.
But Yu-Gi-Oh! Is where the most headaches and ruined reputations would come from. Things that don't fly on American kids' television are par for the course in Japan, including firearms, more prominent boobs and butts, and life-threatening situations. If the show was going to air on American TV, a lot of different changes were going to have to be made, including removing all references to death, sanding off every boob they could find, and somehow trying to find a way to make this not look like a dick.
What is that?
Perfect.
What the hell?
The 4Kids censorship of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is infamous for many awkward and seemingly unnecessary changes to the source material, like
They're pointing menacingly at you. Oh no.
guns being replaced with angry pointing, or buzzsaws turning into dark energy discs. This earned 4Kids a really bad reputation among fans, on top of other things like taking down the Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged YouTube channel repeatedly, to the point it became a plot device in the show itself.
Okay, I see. It wasn't even the Japanese companies, this is freaking 4Kids, of course. Copyright law needs to change, but it's never going to.
And I hate doing this. You can't put corporate shill on a dating profile, but it kinda makes sense why they had to do this. Broadcast standards and practices are strict as hell on children's programming. No way could they get away with half of what was on Yu-Gi-Oh! Looking at interviews and panels done by 4Kids employees, like the previously mentioned Eric Stewart, show just how hard it was to get something like Yu-Gi-Oh! On the air. And as for the abridged stuff, listen, the Japanese are the most litigious copyright fiends on planet Earth. Just try uploading a clip from New Japan Pro Wrestling. I can't. 4Kids, as the American distributors of Yu-Gi-Oh!, are beholden to a lot of choices made by Nihon Ad Systems, the company they were licensing the show from. If they say take the show down, the show goes down. And then 4Kids is the name that's written on the copyright takedown. Besides, as you're gonna learn a lot later, 4Kids not only largely didn't—
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. So, my original statement still stands. Like, they are sticklers for copyright. And God forbid, if any of you guys are content creators, do not play the visual novel games made by mages. I knew that the new Steins Gate, like, visual novel is coming out, the remake or whatever it's going to be. Don't play that. You are going to get absolutely destroyed by copyright. They just have a very different way of looking at these sort of things over there.
Mind the abridged series, but even referenced it on occasion. Again, you can't trade in 4Kids credit for insulin. I'm not doing this for my health. I just think 4Kids hate at this point is kinda tired, and it doesn't really get to the core of why these decisions were made. And besides, it's not like you gotta worry about them doing it anymore since they already died.
Yeah.
Then they lived. And then they died again. And now I think they're on an oxygen machine. 4Kids technically still exists as 4K Media, but they're now called Konami Cross Media NY, which still handles the dub of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series to this very day into the Rush Duel era, which even includes voice actors from the original dub in their latest material, like Wayne Grayson, the voice of Joey Wheeler, who in Yu-Gi-Oh! 7's voices Seat Bastion, a sentient chair who duels using a deck full of chairs. Did I mention the Rush Duel era is batshit insane?
Apparently so.
The Shadow Realm.
Yeah.
One of the many tricks that the team
Realm.
at 4Kids would use to get around network censorship. There were simply too many instances of characters dying or being incapacitated to cut out every single one of them, while still having a show that makes sense. So a clever workaround was needed to think of how to write off characters without killing them. That's when an ingenious idea was reached. It's not killing them if we trap them in a realm of eternal torment and agony. The result wasn't
Yeah, that's so much better. Oh my god. Did the Shadow Realm ever make it into like actual Yu-Gi-Oh lore? That I'm not too sure on. I do know that we reference it all the time though.
Entirely American concept, the Shadow Realm. Characters who lost Shadow games were sent to the Shadow Realm, and it made it possible to air some of the darker content without compromising it too much. The buzzsaws that were supposed to cleave Yugi and Arcana's legs off? Dark energy discs that would send you to the Shadow Realm. Yugi and Joey being dragged down by anchors to drown to their deaths? Nope, loser gets tossed into the Shadow Realm. Joey gets singed down to the bone by God's holy fire? Whew, looks like somebody got a bad case of the Shadow Realm. Walk it off, you'll be fine. The Shadow Realm filled in a lot of different holes that the showrunners needed to fill, saving vital scenes that couldn't be cut from being left on the cutting room floor. People are still surprised to learn that a Shadow Realm is never mentioned in the original Japanese version. Instead, Merrick is a mass murderer who cleaves through about a half a dozen of his own henchmen to try to take down Yugi. Despite that, it can be argued that it's not that bad of an addition. It does fit the show's more mystical and occult themes to have a dark dimension rather than just death.
Yeah, surprisingly, like one of the better things that came out of the whole localization was definitely the Shadow Realm. And to speak more on that, I get where Bumbles is coming from. I can understand it. This doesn't mean that I have to like all the changes, but I understand from their perspective if I was working on it during the times that I need to make sure that this show was able to be aired, then these were the sort of things I would have to do. It's kind of a shame, but that's just how things were.
Similarly to a lot of 4Kids dub changes, the Shadow Realm has taken on a life of its own in meme culture as a shorthand for death. Saying you're going to the Shadow Realm is generally understood to mean, I'm gonna kill you. If you want to find a less dehumanizing way to say kill yourself than unaliving, somehow taking a trip to the Shadow Realm works just fine.
Thank you, Bumbles. Actually, I'm going to use that from now on. Normally, the way I would get around that is like Persona 3 yourself, which people who know Persona 3 or any idea of it probably know what I'm talking about. But now I could maybe add some variety there and say banish yourself to the Shadow Realm, something like that. Okay, now it seems like we've reached basically, what is a halfway point? Like this entire rest of the video is draw monster card. So maybe I want to do that all in one sitting. Honestly, been having a lot of fun with this one. But this is also only the first layer. There's so many more things after this that I don't know whether I should be excited or scared to learn the things that those videos contain. Regardless though, thank you guys so much for joining me. Hope you guys enjoyed your time here. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will catch you all in the next one.